My name is Sarah, and I'm 28. Life for me is quiet, nestled in a small California town where I work at the local grocery store. I've been married to Mark for nearly 3 years. When I first met Mark, my world felt bright. He was the kind of man who could make you laugh with just a look. He was thoughtful and made me feel like I was the only person in the room. He would call me every single day, bring me wildflowers from his walks, and whisper the sweetest things. I was convinced he truly loved me. We married just a year after we met. In the beginning, our life together was a dream. We shared laughter, cooked side by side, and spent our weekends strolling through the park. I felt like the luckiest person alive. I thought this is what love feels like. But now, things have changed. Mark rarely smiles at me the way he used to. His tone is sharp, his words are cold. Sometimes a storm of anger brews in him for no reason I can see. He tells me I don't do enough, that I'm selfish. "You never try hard," he says. I do my best to remain calm, to listen, to understand what he's feeling. But each day feels like climbing a steeper hill. One evening, I came home late from work. The traffic was terrible, and I had stopped at the bakery to buy the fresh bread I know Mark loves. As I walked in, I held it up with a smile. "Hi, I brought your favorite bread." He just stared at me. "Why are you always late? What were you doing?" I explained. "There was traffic, and I got this bread for you." His response was quick. "You always have an excuse." A familiar wave of sadness washed over me. I went to the kitchen wanting to cry, but I refused to let him see. I didn't want another fight. At night, I lie awake in bed, my mind racing. What am I doing wrong? I keep the house spotless. I go to work. I make dinner every night. I try so hard to be kind. But still, he's never happy. Still, his words cut me down. Last week, a small headache blossomed into a migraine. I was resting on the sofa with my eyes closed when Mark came home. He glanced at me and scoffed. "Being lazy again, I see." I told him, "I have a headache." He didn't even acknowledge it. He just walked away. I felt a deep weariness, not just in my body, but in my soul. My heart was tired. I used to love curling up with a book in the evenings. I don't read anymore. I feel like I don't have the time, and a sense of guilt creeps in if I sit still for too long. I'm always wondering, will Mark be angry again? One Sunday morning, the sun was streaming through the windows. I wanted to go for a walk in the park. "Mark," I said, "the weather is beautiful." "Do you want to go for a walk?" He shot back. "You never think about me. You only ever want what you want." I was completely confused. I thought I was suggesting something nice for both of us. I sat back down at the table, sipping my tea in silence. We didn't go for a walk. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. Every single day is a waiting game. Will he be angry? Will he complain? What mistake will I make today? One time, I bought a small vanilla-scented candle from the market. I thought it would make the house feel cozy. When Mark saw it, he said, "Why do you waste money on such useless things?" I didn't argue. I just whispered, "Sorry." I say sorry all the time now. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I don't recognize the person staring back. I look exhausted. I look sad. The sparkle in my eyes is gone. I miss the old Sarah, the Sarah who would dance around the kitchen while cooking, the Sarah who sang while cleaning, the Sarah who laughed freely with her friends. I don't feel like myself anymore. My friend Jessica at work asked me last week, "Sarah, are you okay?" I forced a smile and said, "Yes, just tired." But I wasn't okay. I just didn't know how to tell her. I didn't know how to explain the weight I was carrying. That night, Mark and I had another argument. He claimed I hadn't cleaned the house properly. He said I forgot to wash one of his shirts. "I'll do it right now," I said. "You always say that," he snapped. "You never do anything right." I felt the sting of tears, but I held them back. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, my body still, my hands shaking. I told myself, "You are trying, Sarah. You are doing your absolute best." But it never felt like it was enough. Some nights sleep won't come. I lie awake and think about my life. I ask myself, is this what marriage is supposed to be? I don't know the answer. We don't have children. I used to dream of having them one day, but now I question it. Is this the life I want for my kids? I don't want them to see me like this. I don't want them to think this is what love looks like. I have dreams. I always wanted to open a small coffee shop. I wanted to learn how to bake professionally. I wanted to teach painting to children. But now those dreams feel like distant stars, too far away to reach. I don't think about them much anymore. One evening, I was sitting on the porch. The sky was a beautiful canvas of orange and pink. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, came outside to water her flowers. She smiled warmly at me. "Lovely evening, isn't it?" I smiled back. "Yes, it is." She looked at me more closely. "You look a little down today." I just said, "I'm just tired." "Well," she said kindly, "if you ever want to talk, I'm right here." I felt a lump in my throat, but I just smiled and said, "Thank you." Later that night, I served dinner. Mark took a bite and said, "This food tastes different. Did you do something wrong?" "No," I said quietly. "I made it the exact same way." He didn't respond, just took his plate to the living room. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at my own plate, my appetite gone. That night I sat by the window, looking at the stars. I thought, what happened to us? Why do I feel like I will never be good enough? I didn't have the answer. But in that quiet moment, a small thought began to form. Maybe it's not all my fault. Before I share the rest of my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? It gives me strength to know someone is hearing my words, someone who understands me. Please tell me in the comments. I would really love to know. Days turned into weeks, but the atmosphere in our home remained unchanged. Mark was still distant, still critical. I still felt like I was failing at everything. My routine was a monotonous loop. Wake up early, make breakfast, go to work, come home, clean, cook. And every day Mark would find a new flaw to point out. One morning, I woke up feeling genuinely sick. My head was pounding and my stomach was churning. I wanted nothing more than to stay in bed and rest. I told Mark, "I don't feel well today, I think I need to rest." He just glanced at me, his eyes cold. "You're just lazy, you're always looking for a break." Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't say another word. I just got dressed and dragged myself to work. At the store, my friend Jessica looked at me with concern. "Sarah, you look pale." "Are you okay?" "I'm just not feeling well," I admitted. "Maybe you should go home and rest," she suggested, but I couldn't. I stayed because the thought of being at home, listening to Mark's voice in my head, feeling guilty, was worse. That evening, I came home and immediately started making dinner. I didn't sit down. I didn't rest. I just cooked and cleaned, pushing through the sickness. When Mark got home, he looked at the meal and said, "Again, we had this last week." I whispered, "I'm sorry, I thought you liked it." He didn't answer, just sat and ate in a heavy silence. I ate quietly, too, pushing the food around my plate, my stomach too tight with anxiety to feel hungry. After dinner, I washed the dishes and went straight to the bedroom. I sat on the bed, staring at the floor, asking myself the same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? Why is he always so unhappy with me? That night, I cried myself to sleep, muffling the sounds in my pillow so Mark wouldn't hear. The next morning, I promised myself, I will not cry today. I will be strong. But at work, I felt fragile. I accidentally missed scanning a customer's item. My manager corrected me gently. "Sarah, please be careful." I apologized, feeling that familiar sense of being small and incompetent. After work, I didn't go straight home. I went to a little coffee shop near the bus stop, a place where I used to love to sit and read. I bought a coffee and found a seat by the window. I watched people walking by. Some were laughing, some were with their families, some were alone but looked peaceful. I remembered when I used to feel happy like that. I stayed for a long time, dreading the moment I'd have to go home, to face Mark's coldness, to hear more hurtful words. But eventually, the sun began to set, and I knew I couldn't delay any longer. When I walked in the door, Mark's first words were, "Where were you? Why are you late again?" "I just stopped for a coffee," I explained. "You waste so much time and money," he said dismissively. I didn't answer. I just walked into the kitchen to start dinner. Later that night, I sat outside on the steps. The stars were bright in the clear sky. It was quiet. I thought about my life, about all the dreams I had packed away. I used to dream of opening my own coffee shop. I used to love drawing and painting. I wrote stories. I didn't do any of those things anymore. I didn't even smile much. I asked myself, am I the problem? Am I really as selfish as he says? But a voice deep inside knew the truth. I tried every single day. I cooked, I cleaned, I worked, I listened. I said sorry until the word lost all meaning, but it never ever made him happy. The next morning, Mark left for work early. It was my day off. I cleaned the house, did the laundry, watered the plants. Then, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I sat down with a cup of tea. For a few brief moments, I felt a sliver of peace. I saw an old book I used to love on the shelf and picked it up. As I started reading, a small, genuine smile touched my lips. I hadn't realized how much I missed it. That afternoon, I went to the park by myself. I sat on a bench and watched the ducks gliding on the pond. Children were playing nearby, their laughter carrying on the soft breeze. The sun was warm on my skin. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God, for this moment." I stayed for a whole hour before heading home. Mark returned later and saw me reading the book. "What are you doing?" he asked. "You have time to just sit and read." "Yes," I said calmly. "I finished all the chores. It's my day off." "You should be doing more," he grumbled. I looked at him and said nothing. But inside, something felt different. I wasn't angry. I wasn't afraid. I was just tired of it all. That night, I thought more deeply. Why do I spend all my energy trying to make him happy? Why do I never consider my own happiness? I remembered something Jessica had said to me once. "Sarah, you matter too." I closed my eyes and whispered the words to myself. I matter too. The next day at work felt lighter. After my shift, I didn't go home. I met Jessica at the park. We sat on the grass and talked. I didn't tell her everything, but I shared a little piece of my heart. "Sometimes," I said, "I feel like I'm not good enough." Jessica looked right at me and said with conviction, "You are more than enough, Sarah." I smiled, a real smile this time. I wanted to cry, but not from sadness. It was the relief of being seen, of knowing someone cared. When I got home that evening, Mark asked, "Where were you?" "I was with Jessica," I said. "You didn't ask me first," he said, annoyed. I took a breath and replied, "I don't need to ask for permission for everything." He stared at me, clearly not liking my answer, but I didn't feel the usual surge of fear. I felt calm. Later, I looked at myself in the mirror. I still looked tired, but there was something new in my eyes. A tiny spark of light, a flicker of strength. Maybe I wasn't the problem. Maybe the problem was that I had completely forgotten how to care for myself. And maybe, just maybe, that was finally starting to change. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror and truly looked at myself, something I hadn't done in a long time. My hair was a bit messy, and my eyes were still weary. But I saw something else, too. I saw a woman who was still standing, A woman who hadn't given up. A woman who was still trying. I thought about all the days I felt small and invisible, all the nights I cried silently, all the times Mark's words made me believe I was not enough. But now, a new truth was dawning. Maybe the problem was never me. I continued my duties. I cooked, I cleaned, I went to work, but I stopped pouring all my energy into pleasing Mark. I started carving out small moments for myself. I took walks. I visited the library. I spent more time talking with Jessica and my other friend, Emily. I started to feel a little more like myself again. Mark noticed the shift and he didn't like it. "You're acting different," he'd say. "You're cold." "I'm just tired," I would reply. "I need some space." "You just don't care about me anymore," he accused. I stayed quiet. I had no energy left for fighting, but inside I knew a fundamental change had occurred. One day I came home from work completely exhausted. I sat down on the sofa, not starting dinner right away. Mark looked at me with disdain. "You don't do anything for me anymore." I looked back at him, my voice steady. "I'm doing my best. I'm tired, Mark. I work all day. I come home and do everything here, and it's still never enough for you." He looked genuinely surprised. He wasn't used to me speaking this way. I stood up, feeling a surge of clarity. "I'm not happy anymore. I feel like I'm always walking in fear, always terrified of what you'll say next." His face hardened. "So what now? You want to leave?" I didn't answer him. I walked into the bedroom, sat on the bed, and closed my eyes. I thought about everything. My silent tears, my forgotten dreams, the way I kept trying even when my heart was shattered. I took a deep, shaky breath and told myself, "You don't have to live like this." The next day, I called Emily. "Can I stay with you for a few days?" I asked. "Yes, of course," she said without hesitation. That evening, when Mark came home, I was packing a small bag. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "I need some time for myself," I said. "I need to think." "So you're just walking away?" "I've been here the whole time, Mark," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I've stayed even when I was hurting, but now I need to take care of myself." He didn't try to stop me. He didn't say anything else. I walked out the door with my small bag, and for the first time, I didn't look back. At Emily's house, a sense of calm washed over me. She wrapped me in a warm blanket and made me tea. We sat on her sofa and I told her everything. I finally said the words out loud. "I don't feel safe in my marriage. I don't feel loved." Emily just listened, holding my hand, letting me speak. When I was done, she said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Sarah. You are already enough." I stayed with her for a few days. I rested. I walked in the nearby park, watching children play and dogs run freely. I sat on a bench, closed my eyes, and felt the wind on my face. It was the first time in months I had felt true peace. I didn't know what my future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I could not go back to that life. I didn't want to be afraid every day. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life feeling like I was never good enough. I decided to leave Mark for good. I found a small room for rent above a bakery. The owner, a kind woman, said I could work a few hours in the shop to help with the rent. I said yes immediately. A new routine began. I woke up early, the smell of baking bread filling my room. I worked in the shop, and after my shift, I went for long walks. I started smiling more. I laughed with the customers. I slept soundly through the night. I also started drawing again. I found an old sketchbook and began to fill its pages with flowers, little houses, and the smiling faces of strangers. I even drew a picture of myself, standing tall under a bright sun. One evening, Emily visited. We sat on the floor of my little room, drinking tea. "You've made a beautiful space for yourself," she said, looking around. "It's small," I replied, "but it's mine, and I feel free here." Sometimes I still think about Mark. I wonder what he's doing or if he ever misses me. But the thought no longer brings me pain. It brings a sense of strength because I chose to leave a life that was breaking me. I chose myself. One morning, as I was walking to the bakery, a little girl on the street smiled at me and said, "Good morning." I smiled back. "Good morning to you, too." That small, simple moment filled my heart with warmth. It was a reminder that the world is still full of kindness and gentle days. I don't know if I will ever fall in love again or if I will remarry. But I do know this: I will never, ever lose myself again. I will not apologize for who I am. I will not silence my voice. I will not stop dreaming. I may not have everything I once thought I wanted, but I have peace. I have hope. And most importantly, I have myself. And now, I truly believe I am not the problem. I never was. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming.